Welcome, everybody, to the Weekend Review here on this Saturday, May 2nd, 2026. Doing it a day early. Got some extra time, and I just want to make sure that we have an opportunity to get to the emails, because we didn't get to them yesterday. We had some come in for the mailbag, and we didn't have time to do that. So we're going to do it here tonight, and we're going to do it with a combination episode of talking about everything this week in WWE as Backlash comes to us next week. Already, as it comes to us from Tampa, Florida, May 9th. So already we're here after WrestleMania, and headlined by Jacob Fatu taking on Roman Reigns for the World Heavyweight Championship. We now have a new contender for Cody Rhodes, seemingly, and that is not Ricky Starks, who got no reaction. We'll talk about that. But Gunther, who came to SmackDown and decided to attack Cody Rhodes. We don't have a reason why. I don't know if we'll get one, but it just reinforces the idea that no one is really loyal to any brand. There is no brand loyalty. There is no draft. The brand split is non-existent. So while Rhea and Io Sky had an amicable split at WrestleMania or the Monday Night Raw after, do they really need to? Apparently they can just go on any brand, but we'll talk much more in detail about SmackDown. Amanda did a review of SmackDown, as always. Excellent job done, and you can check her out on the SmackDown review that was posted earlier today. So before we get going, I want to thank everybody joining us over on Patreon, and I want to invite you to go to Patreon and get everything ad-free. If you don't want to hear the ads throughout the show, well, there's a great way to get rid of them. Patreon.com/WWE podcast. And I want to welcome, let's see here, Raccoon City joining us. Thank you. Light Skin Caesar. I'm not sure if that's a euphemism or something, but Light Skin Caesar, welcome to the WWE podcast. And some of you have also upgraded. I appreciate that. And J. Drew joined as a free member. Hopefully things are up to your liking, and maybe you join us on the other side of the paywall. And so thank you, those of you who have joined us over the last week. So let's dive into SmackDown. And actually, before we do that, I want to get to the emails, because there's only a few. There's a few emails coming to us about Backlash and other things, so let's talk about it. The first email comes to us from, let's go to Curtis. He says, "Hey Matt, I was listening to your Raw review, and near the end you brought up Umaga. Umaga to me was incredible watching as a 10-year-old kid. He was one of the first wrestlers I really got into, and I legitimately thought it was from some tribal jungle or something like that. My very first wrestling action figure was an Umaga figure, but it was one of those figures that don't move. I'm not sure if you remember Niagara Falls Wrestling Store or not, but man, that place was just amazing. That's where my parents took me and my brother one summer. We had a weekend in Niagara Falls. I highly recommend looking up that store, WWE Niagara Falls. I haven't seen that store in person. I know it exists and I haven't been there. I'll take your word for it. And anybody that's interested in going, I recommend that you go. I'll take your recommendation at face value. I do remember as a kid, you're making me think about WWF New York. Did anybody ever go there? It was a merchandise store. It was also a restaurant. It didn't last long because the place was just bleeding money, and it was obviously very expensive in Times Square to have a place of business and be profitable. Very difficult. So WWF New York, I remember being there. I think it was 2000, right around 2000, somewhere in there. You give or take a year. And again, that store didn't last long, and / restaurant. But all right, moving on. Anyway, not a Jacob Fatu guy at all. I appreciate him trying to carry on Umaga's legacy or whatever you want to call it, but I just think he acts like an idiot inside and outside the ring. I think he needs a refresh or something after he loses to Roman at Backlash. I can't get behind him at all, and I wish he would just find his own way instead of shaking his head nonstop like he's a crackhead. Umaga actually suited the character he played so well, and I was a huge fan of it, but he made it look believable. Like you said, too, he at least has had a mouthpiece. Jacob needs that desperately. Fatu has been a nope for me for a long time. Okay, couple things. One, the Umaga was much more of a believable character. I can't remember his side partner or his mouthpiece. It was Alejandro something. Somebody is yelling it at their phone right now. I can't remember the name. Alejandro something. Anyway, yes, Fatu is just a character that is relying too much on his animalistic side. I know they're calling him the Wolverine, but it feels a little cartoonish to me. I have not been a Fatu fan. I really haven't. I'm with you on that. He does shake his head too much, and I honestly don't know what he's saying in half of his promos. I don't understand his slogan or his catchphrase. I don't understand it. All gas. Okay, fine. All gas, no brakes. I understand that part. But the rest of it, I mean, it's not my thing. I don't, right now, I'm not a Fatu fan. But WWE, the moment that the fans started to get behind him organically, I think the fans were ready for him to be the next kind of breakout star, but I don't think the fans were even ready for him to be in this position. It does feel like WWE didn't have anyone else, and they just said, well, who are the fans kind of getting behind right now? And they're like, well, Jacob Fatu. And they're like, let's do it. Let's go. We need a new opponent for Roman. He's got nobody. But he's also in a weird position because not only is the character not fully polished at all, he's not very good on the microphone. I don't understand what he's saying half the time. He's a little too angry all the time. They also don't know what the fans don't know what to do. Because, yes, they wanted him and got behind him. But again, I don't think many wanted him this quickly and put in this position. But you're facing Roman Reigns, who's one of the top baby faces in the company, if not the top baby face. And yet you're supposed to be positioning Fatu as a baby face, and he's talking about dog walking Roman Reigns. And he attacked Roman Reigns on Raw. Look, when the fans are pressed and it's at Backlash, and you're asking the fans to decide, and that's what you're doing, whether you want to or not, the fans are going to side with Roman. Their loyalties will lie with Roman Reigns. Just a bad idea. This is it's like he's getting an opportunity at the championship. We all know with 1,000% certainty he's not winning it, nor should he. It would be a complete disaster on multiple levels. But beyond that, you're halting his momentum because if the idea is to continue to get him cheered, why is he facing Roman Reigns, one of the top baby faces in the company? How's that going to help him? The fans are going to look at him and go, oh, that's, I don't know. I mean, I like Roman a lot more. It's a silly thing to do right now. He can beat up Solo, and that's fine. He can beat up Tala Tonga and the Samoans. That's fine. But it just seems too much too soon, even though we all know he's not going to win. So that's how I kind of feel about it. I'm with you. Yeah, Umaga was just so much better from a believability standpoint. He was just a monster of a heel. He had a mouthpiece. It was great. I really enjoyed Umaga. I don't think Umaga gets the respect he deserves for what he accomplished. Even his matches with John Cena. Check out Umaga and John Cena. Really good rivalry. Okay. Thanks, Curtis. Quick email from Sam. He says, should Seth and Braun main event Backlash? They're not gonna. Should they? You could certainly make an argument for it. Why? Because Fatu and Roman Reigns is not that big of a main event. It isn't. No one can sell me on it outside of, okay, it's a world championship match. And that's what will make it the main event. So I get it. In principle, it is the main event. It should be as a world championship match. But in terms of interest, I think, honestly, Braun and Seth is much more fascinating given who's going to win, who's going to lose. Is there going to be interference? That is much more interesting to me than Fatu and Roman. Fatu and Roman may be the most boring rivalry that Roman Reigns has had in years. It bores me to tears, not just because Roman is certainly going to win, or if he loses, it's by DQ, therefore the title stays on him. So I'm not saying that Roman can't lose the match. We all know that if he loses, he doesn't have to lose the belt. But my point is the belt stays on Roman. We all know that there's just absolutely no chance they give it to Fatu, nor should they, to try to swerve us. But more importantly, it's just boring. Fatu doesn't feel like he belongs here yet. The fans are not cheering him because he's facing a babyface that is the top in the company. It also feels like too much too soon. He's not polished. All the reasons I gave already. So Seth and Braun, yes, it's from an interest standpoint. And honestly, match quality, I think, is going to be better with Braun and Seth. I know Roman is ultra talented, but Fatu's still green. So, good question. Let's see. Let's go to Dennis. He says, hey, Matt, hope you're well. The funeral of the Gingerbread Man. What the fuck is going on? I would like to know what medication the writers are on. It feels like Vince is back because of this crap. Since WrestleMania, Raw and SmackDown have been terrible. It seems to be all over the place. No real direction. Rollins and Breakker's story is decent, but everything else is bad. Ricky Saints, who is a very good wrestler and a good talent, gets brought up to SmackDown and gets beaten by Rhodes on his first night. Why? Also, releasing Aleister Black was head-scratching. They could have done a whole lot more with him. He wasn't used properly, in my opinion. And the best to DJ on whatever he does next. I've always enjoyed his opinions in the Joe Hendry Report every week. Well, thank you, Dennis. And yes, much love to DJ, who is going to be doing his own thing and taking on new adventures. But we had a final Joe Hendry Report that we put out as its own episode earlier. Did I put out earlier today? Yeah. So check it out. It's not a long episode. It's only about 10 minutes. It's his final Joe Hendry Report. And yes, DJ, long time listener. Obviously, he still can listen, but as far as contributing to the show, it seems like that has moved on. That he's turning a page, and I'm good for him. Thank you, DJ, and to Dennis. But yeah, things since WrestleMania, Dennis, have been questionable at best, even prior to WrestleMania. Think about what's been going on prior. One of the weirdest lackluster builds for some, not all, of the programs heading into Mania. We all know the night one disaster. But taking this a little bit more piece by piece, the Gingerbread Man. I'll get a little bit more into this in the breakdown of SmackDown I'll do in a moment. But the Gingerbread segment there, it's just stupid. It's Vince McMahon-esque at his worst. Think about this. And I really want everyone to be honest with themselves. If you took a SmackDown, a version, an edition of SmackDown, and like a current edition of SmackDown, let's take this week's, and then you took an edition of SmackDown at random during the Vince McMahon era over the last, 10 years, and you threw them next to each other, and you have to take some factors out. Like, obviously some wrestlers have died since then. Some wrestlers have been champion, not champion, or gone. I'm saying everything being equal, can you tell me with certainty, and are you being honest with yourself, if you tell me that you could tell which is TKO and which is a Vince McMahon show? I don't know if you could. Now, yes, there's ads and there's visuals that would clearly give it away, but just from the feel of the show, the vibe of the show, the pacing of the show, the way matches go, what has really changed? What has changed truly from an in-ring perspective? We all know the ad thing is just horrible. The placement of ads everywhere, the Xfinity now is a sponsor of SmackDown. It's just all of it. Nothing can just be blank anymore. They are monetizing every piece of production. We all know that's horrible. I'm talking just from a production, or rather a in-ring and storyline perspective. Can you really discern between Vince McMahon's SmackDown or Raw and 2026's TKO's version of professional wrestling? I think they're indistinguishable in a lot of ways. From some of the head-scratching decisions to this silliness, this overexertion of comedy attempts. We already have a comedic element to the show, and that's Danhausen, who does a very nice job. We have that there. Wrestling does not need any more comedy. It should not be comedic by nature. If it happens organically and you stumble on it, fine. That's one thing. But comedy is very difficult to manufacture. Even if you think it's going to be the funniest thing on paper, in execution, it will always feel different. And this was stupid. I guess it was supposed to be part funny, part Sami moving on from the Gingerbread Man. Why the fuck is Sami Zayn in the ring? One of the best wrestlers that WWE has, and I know that's sometimes controversial with people's opinions. That's just the nature of the beast. He's not one of my favorites for personal reasons, but from a in-ring perspective, from a legacy star perspective, he at this point, he's a veteran. A well-known decent name brand value veteran that can still work his ass off. But why is he in the ring beating up a gingerbread man? An unmanned gingerbread man? What are we doing? This is cartoon shit. This is Sami Zayn. I know, I don't care if it's symbolic. We don't need this. We could just not have the gingerbread man there, maybe. I don't understand that at all. That was really just horrible. That's Vince McMahon at his worst. So, totally agree with that. Ricky Saints, again, we'll talk a little bit more about that with Monday Night, or the SmackDown, my take on SmackDown in just a little bit. So hang tight, Dennis. Okay, let's continue. Okay, we've got Brogan, who says, I think Mr. Kennedy will return soon, once he's done with his TNA run, considering he was fired for no reason, because Randy Morton pretended Kennedy dropped him on his head. He should come back. I think he'd be a good Raw or GM, or he can still wrestle. I saw recently Mr. Kennedy on the Chris Van Vliet podcast a couple months ago, I think it was. I don't know if he had any interest in coming back to the company. I mean, I wouldn't be against it if he can actually wrestle, but he's not young anymore. I mean, what is he, late 40s? It's not, exactly prime time to be in any professional sport. I wouldn't hate it as a cameo act. I don't think in any kind of full capacity be a good idea, but it's not impossible. All right, one more. Let's see here. Let's talk to Alex. Yeah, this is gonna be a fun one. All right, Alex. He says, "Hey there. The podcast is great. I really enjoy it, but please, oh please, stop with the learn English rants. You're not wrong. The majority of viewers are English speakers, but recently, anytime a foreign wrestler comes up, there's a 5 to 10 minute rant about learning to speak English. It is really getting tiring for people who listen weekly. We know your thoughts. You don't need to give us the whole spiel every episode. I generally turn the podcast off if the rant seems like it's going to begin. Once again, you aren't wrong. You just don't need to give your lecture every episode. Otherwise, good stuff. Keep up the good work. Okay, Alex, listen. Well, you have to understand, Alex, a couple things. One, there are new listeners that come on every week. So they haven't heard my thoughts on it. I understand it seems like you're a long-time listener. I appreciate that. But there are people who haven't heard what I have to say on it. And yeah, I do seem to repeat myself with certain things, but it's because certain problems keep continuing. And I know that every time it happens, I don't have to go into a 10-minute rant, but that's sometimes what happens. There is something that's a skip button that, that I think you utilize. If you hear me going on a rant, there's that like skip ahead 10 seconds, 30 seconds. You can just do that. That's an option. But no, I get it, because sometimes I'm thinking to myself, I'm sure there's people who listen to this and have heard it, but I do it also for the benefit of not just me getting my rants out because I feel like something's super annoying, but for the people who haven't heard me before. And there's a lot of people who come on to listen to wrestling podcasts during WrestleMania season and beyond. So, I get it. And I totally stand by everything I've said about it. I think there's some legitimacy there, and appreciate it though, Alex. And thanks for listening for, I don't know how long, but however long you have. We're going to get into the SmackDown review, but speaking of rants, Nikki Bella is one of my favorites, right? And some of you are going, oh, here he goes. Well, get your skip buttons ready, folks. This is not about the same issue. I do have various issues as she brings them up, I comment on. But her entire worldview, as you know, is pretty much polar opposite to mine. So as she publicly talks about this on her podcast, I think I have the right to publicly comment. So recently, she talked about her divorce publicly. Again, guys, public, which means if you don't want people to publicly comment on your public divorce, then don't comment on it. But whatever. So she recently said that she had to pay her ex-husband $200,000 in their settlement because she was the primary breadwinner. And she said, quote, that the judge said, this is the first time in all my years I've seen a woman have to pay a man. You should be so damn proud that you built such an empire that someone wants to be a piece of it. Okay. Well, first of all, and then this may be a little bit, it's off topic, but it's not, because Nikki Bella is an active wrestler and she's talking about it. So here we go. So here's the thing. Yeah, men have had to pay the women because from the dawn of human civilization, most of the time, men would be the ones who are out working, making a salary, helping support the family, while the woman stays at home and cares for the children. And that we all know that that's not always the case. And in today's world, we know that it's kind of starting to try to reverse itself, because being a boss babe or boss bitch is being, at least trying to be sold to women as more important and more satisfying and more fulfilling than it is to raise children, which of course I think is just total lunacy. But that's the product being sold, which is of course totally not in direct relation to women being more depressed and alone and angry and all the rest of it. So I'm sure that's totally unrelated. However, Nikki Bella, I mean, or this concept here that, you know, this judge said, you should be so damn proud that you built such an empire that someone wants a piece of it. Well, okay. What about, if this judge is saying that, then what about all the men that had to give all these other women half of their money or more in alimony? What about the empire they built, right? This is just giving Nikki Bella's ex-husband what he deserves legally. This is the contract that you voluntarily enter into in marriage. Yeah, it comes with its risks. It certainly does. People learn that the hard way. Oftentimes, it's something that's not even brought up. Divorce is something that doesn't happen to most people, not all, but most. And of course, this judge is clearly, whoever this judge was, very much on the side of feminists and all the rest, which I'll leave that topic be because this is wrestling. But for Nikki Bella, yeah, I mean, if you guys want to be treated as equals for everything, well, then there you go. I guess you don't want to be treated as equals when it doesn't benefit you, but that's the way the law works. Everyone's equal under the law, right? But I guess we're not supposed to notice that if it ends up not benefiting the woman, that it seems that they're being discriminated against. So yes, congratulations. Yes. And most of the time the men are the ones paying because they're the ones making money. They're the ones who are providing for their family while the woman is at home or works part-time to try to help support the family. But no matter how you slice it, to me, there is nothing more, whether it's the man staying home or the woman, there isn't anything more important, more valuable and fulfilling than raising children. What? Just is trying to climb the corporate ladder somehow more important? What are you leaving behind when you die? I mean, what you're leaving behind? What? A legacy of how many hours you worked per week? What your salary was? Who gives a shit? Right? It's not to say that not making money is not important. It is. But that's transitory. That comes and goes. Money comes in, it goes out. So you try to keep as much of it as you can, manage it. But this is just, I think, one of the cultural part of the cultural rot. I think that is part of today, and I'll leave that be because that's for another show I do. So I'll stop there. But Nikki Bella, yeah, welcome to life. This is the contract that you entered into. So anyway, I would love to know who that judge is. I'm very interested. Moving on. Let's get to SmackDown, as many of you are probably either skipping through, turned off, or are saying things to your phone. That's fine. Let's go. SmackDown. Let's start with where it was from, and where the heck was it? Oh, it was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's right. And Cody Rhodes comes out, and he was being introduced by Mark Nash, and the response for Cody has been very muted, I have to say. Cody Rhodes' response as of late has been much quieter than in years past. It probably is time to seriously consider turning him heel. Cody Rhodes as champion is boring. It is boring. And I don't know if there is a plan to turn him heel. But this version of Cody Rhodes, he's good at what he does, but it's running out of gas. It had a hell of a run. It started at WrestleMania 38 when he re-debuted to face Seth Rollins. They had a great program. We know the pec injury, that famous visual of his his pec being torn at the Hell in a Cell match. We remember that. He's had some great moments. WrestleMania 39 almost finishing the story. WrestleMania 40 finishing the story. The horrible WrestleMania 41 finish. WrestleMania 42 beating Randy Orton. He's had a great run. It's time. It's time. And I think they should pull the trigger before they decide and the fans decide that he's just not interesting anymore. And they're already starting to show that, but you want to turn him when he's at least somewhat hot. And right now, he's just kind of there. He's your champion, not an interesting champion. Never has been an interesting champion. He doesn't do anything as a champion that is fun or exciting or innovative. He's just kind of there as your corporately suited champion. And he does great promos, really good in the ring. But I think it's time. It's time to turn Cody. I wouldn't wait till even WrestleMania 43. You don't have to do it on a big stage like that. You can do it at SummerSlam. You could just do it on a random SmackDown. In fact, that may be advisable given that SmackDown has been sinking in the ratings as of late, and you're trying to keep people interested post-Mania. SmackDown's going back to 2 hours, apparently then to only go back to 3. I don't understand what's happening there. But you could really benefit by having it happen on a random SmackDown and then get people talking and excited about the PLE. Do I think it's going to happen in the next few months? No, probably not. If it's going to happen, the next destination is probably SummerSlam. But let's go on. He talked about how he was clear to wrestle, and Ricky Saints comes out and he joined Cody in the ring. He said, "You boo what you don't understand." And Saints said that to the crowd, and he said he's young and successful and everything the fans wish they were. He said he and Cody are no strangers and that this is a revolution, and welcome the fans to Friday Night Saints. The fans booed and chanted for Cody. I mean, I got to say, Ricky Saints here is not particularly interesting to me. And I understand that, look, he just debuted. I said the same thing about Danhausen. I was wrong about Danhausen from a character perspective. So being wrong is something that I am, and sometimes I'm often wrong. But Ricky Saints, he got no reaction whatsoever. It might as well have been a janitor to come out, some guy that's backstage, some maintenance guy to come out. He would have gotten more of a reaction. And I think a lot of it is that most fans probably don't know who he is and didn't watch him in NXT or anywhere else. And they wanted and expected someone bigger. So it's also kind of just apathy. They're just like, oh. And then again, they may know who you are, but they're just not excited about it because they expect a bigger star. And that's, I think, part of it. But even if you don't know who this guy is, as somebody who has not watched a lot of his work, admittedly, watching his entrance, watching his mannerisms, watching him on the way to the ring, it felt like he's a fan trying to play wrestler. That's what it felt like. And I'm not trying to bring up Pat McAfee again. That was a different scenario. This guy has true talent in the ring, physically. Otherwise, he wouldn't be here. But he felt like, and when I say that is because his entrance and his quote-unquote gimmick is too produced. He feels very, very much like a fan who would create this entrance at WrestleMania where you can do like a creative fan entrance. It is just too over the top, too produced, not natural at all. That's how he feels to me. Very unnatural, very much a production. He doesn't feel organic. There's nothing authentic about him. And I understand he's a heel. I'm not supposed to like him, but I don't dislike him in the way that I want to see him get beat up. I find his character very shallow, very empty. I feel no emotion for him. And even though he's new, just his presentation to a newcomer is not something that it doesn't grab you. And that's concerning, I think, if you're WWE. If you talk to, I think, the general audience, who would be like, I don't know if they feel my way, but if you had the reaction I just told you from a lot of fans to WWE, that's concerning, because wouldn't you want somebody who's new to grab your attention? If you're just, scrolling by, or you're on the streaming, I'd say changing the channel, but no one changes the channel anymore. You would want that to grab your attention, and he doesn't. He looks phony, produced, manufactured, too over the top as a character. And you may say, well, what do you mean? He's not like Danhausen. He feels like a guy that WWE wants you to take serious that I just can't. Danhausen is implicitly a character that is made for comedy. Ricky Saints is not. So I'm not crapping on his in-ring work. I've seen enough of it to know that he's talented in the ring. And that never seems to be the problem. In-ring talent is never seemingly the issue. It's always mic work, presentation, and character. That's where I think a lot of the issues lie for a lot of wrestlers. It's almost like they're trying to compensate for what they don't have by overcompensating in the area of entrance, because they don't have much other substance to provide. And that's how I feel Ricky Saints is. Again, first impressions on SmackDown is what I'm giving you. And yes, just like Danhausen, in a few months I may go, okay, I get it. And I always root for that, because that means the product's better. That's the difference. When I criticize the product, and people criticize me for criticizing the product, the intent is, yes, to bring the attention to this horrible thing and vent about it. But the other side of it is, and the more important goal is, to try to show how this product can be improved. So I hope I'm wrong about Ricky Saints. I hope things change. But right now, for all the reasons I just stated, I did not get a good feeling from Ricky Saints. The crowd reacted in kind. You heard 10,000 people go, meh. We're not impressed. Between, again, I think his lack of name power, which is, that's part of the star building process. I'm willing to go through the pains of people we don't know being introduced. You have to have that. Many fans don't have the patience for that. They just want the biggest stars all the time. They don't want to go and watch and deal with and start the process of learning some new guy or girl. But that's part of it. You have to do that to continue this company. This is how the company will continue. Otherwise, it just won't. I mean, you'll have fans leave in droves. So star power will for always and ever be the center point and focal point, or should be, of WWE. Because everything else is dependent on star power. Everything. If you're saying, what are you talking about? Ads? No. Well, think about it. Okay. You don't have star power, or at least the shown ability to create stars. Fans are going to stop watching, which means streaming numbers go down. TV ratings go down, which means less sponsorships, which means less ad revenue for the all-important ad revenue to TKO. Stock price drops, right? I'm not predicting a catastrophic failure. I'm just saying that everything revolves around stars. Their talent are truly the focal point or should be of WWE. Okay, I don't know how I got on that. I don't know if I'm going to finish SmackDown here, guys, with the way I'm going. I'm just finding topics and deep diving and going off on detours. So the short of this Ricky Saints segment is that he gets a match with Cody Rhodes. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Charlotte takes on Jacy Jayne. And this match did go 10 minutes with Jacy Jayne beating Charlotte in 10 minutes because Charlotte knocked Reed off the apron with a big boot, and then Flair turned around and Jayne hit her with the rolling encore before getting the victory. After, Fatal Influence then ended up beating down Flair. Bliss tried to help, but she was ineffective, and then Rhea Ripley comes out and attacks the Fatal Influence group and tries to hit Riptide on Jacy Jayne, but Jayne slipped away, shoved Ripley, and it was just short of colliding with Flair. So good. Predictable, but good. Just because it's predictable doesn't mean it's bad. I think this was an effective segment that sets up the eventual rematch between Jacy Jayne and I think Rhea Ripley. And where does Charlotte Flair tie into all this? That's the question. It's been quite a while since Charlotte Flair has been in a singles role. She has been really, I don't want to say pushed down or hidden. Those are wrong words to use. I think a wrong categorization of what we have seen from Charlotte over the last year and a half. But this has been, and it might be time to push Charlotte back into the limelight and maybe think about making her a single star again. The fans might accept it and they might not reject it. It's been a long time now, and Alexa and Charlotte have been a really good tag team. I don't think anyone predicted that before they put them together many months ago, but it might be time. It might be time to pull her back out and put her in the women's division as a single star. All right. So a SummerSlam ad airs, and then we get Damian Priest. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's an interesting caveat to the show about Danhausen, and Miz and Kit Wilson were backstage. Wilson set a trap using, quote, free human monies sign, and Danhausen saw the sign, opened the briefcase, and he took out what he thought was $400 so he could pay or buy many teeth with it. And Miz and Wilson come out of hiding, and Miz complained that Danhausen walked off with his $40,000 of money. And okay, so Danhausen has put a tweet out or a post on X that he's offering legends to come out of retirement to tag team with him to take on Miz and Kit Wilson at Backlash. So who is this person? We'll have to see. It is conceivable that he does bring a legend out of retirement. In fact, that's got to be the way they're going. And obviously a babyface, so let the speculation begin. Damian Priest and R-Truth take on Axiom and Nathan Frazier for the tag titles. This match lasts 9.5 minutes, with Damian Priest and R-Truth beating Axiom and Nathan Frazier in 9.5 minutes after a Razor's Edge and a South of Heaven chokeslam. After the match, Tala Tonga enters the ring and puts down the champions, and then Solo got on the apron and gave instructions and laughed, and Tala hits a double chokeslam on Axiom and Frazier. Then Jimmy and Jay made their entrance. Jimmy said Solo isn't the only one who has a problem with Fatu, and Jimmy said Fatu made a mistake by putting his hands on Roman. And Jay said Fatu used the Tongan death grip, which is a sacred hold in a last resort. And Jay said whatever plan Solo has for Fatu would wait until Reigns is done with him. And Solo said there were plenty of Fatu to go around. And Solo laughed and said they didn't have time for this and told Tala they were leaving. All right. He said Fatu's a dead man. Solo did. Okay. We then get champion Cody Rhodes, WWE champion Cody Rhodes, taking on Ricky Saints in a non-title match, which went 9 minutes and ended with a crossroads that looked like Ricky Saints got his head, or his neck cranked and his head spiked into the mat. This is really the only type of body that can really sell the crossroads. There really aren't any other body types that can do it like Ricky Saints. And Ricky Saints he's got to be, 5'9" at best. And not that he's not a good wrestler per se, but as I said earlier in the show, with the non-reaction, this match got a little bit more, and that's fine. The fans can get into physically what you're capable of, but the character is always going to be the part that you struggle with. However, this was an okay match. Fine. Really what came from this is not even Ricky Saints. It's what happened after, and that's Gunther putting Cody in a sleeper hold, and the referees had to stop him. So Gunther, yes, that I don't think anyone saw coming, attacks Cody Rhodes. Do I think Gunther has a chance to win the Undisputed Championship? Yes, I do. Now, many of us do believe that Brock Lesnar and Gunther is scheduled for SummerSlam. That could still be the case. Which means that if Gunther is going to face Cody before then, it's probably not going to be a Brock Lesnar championship match against Gunther. So that leads me to believe that Cody and Gunther, again, will result in Cody retaining. But you need to also let Gunther look strong for Brock heading into SummerSlam, if that's the plan, and not have him just outright be beat by Cody. So this is, again, SummerSlam is not too far away. 3 months away. I understand that. A lot can happen in 3 months. A lot can be forgotten in 3 months. But it shouldn't be overlooked that you need to make Gunther look as strong as possible without putting the belt on him. Okay. So then we get The Miz double-crossing Danhausen, and he ends up getting beat down. And he starts, it happened because Miz was about to curse Wilson. That's when Danhausen was attacked by Miz from behind. He gets hit with the skull-crushing finale, and Wilson hit Danhausen with the top rope elbow. No one came to save him, but they will. They will at Backlash. Royce Keys was shown warming up backstage for a match against Angel, and we get Royce Keys and Angel versus, with Berto. The match only lasted 1 minute and 45 seconds, with Keys destroying Angel and hitting the ultimate spine buster. That was it. We had a quick interview from Tiffany Stratton backstage, and then we had the Gingerbread Man piece that we talked about at the top of the show. That was just silly. But Trick Williams got a nice pop after we had Sami Zayn attack the Gingerbread Man. And I have to say, is Trick Williams? It looked like he was coming out to save an unmanned gingerbread costume. The visual didn't look good. Now, I know that that's not what they're going to try to tell us, but the visual looked really bad. It made Trick Williams look a little silly. The Gingerbread Man should have never been a part of any of this. We could have had a promo from Zayn that led to Trick Williams coming out to attack Sami. But the way that it was structured, it looked like he came out to save the Gingerbread Man. Of course, that didn't have anyone in the costume. I can't believe I'm saying these words. But Trick Williams came out, and people were chanting, "Whoop that trick. He's over. He's over." And he got the best of Sami, who ended up retreating into the crowd. Okay. We then had Byron Saxton interview Jackson Legend backstage to hype their matchup that was next, which was Paige and Brie Bella taking them on for the women's tag titles. Fairly quick match here. 7 minutes and 50 seconds with Paige and Brie winning to retain the women's tag titles. Not a particularly interesting match. The crowd wasn't really hot very much all night at all, to be honest, as a general rule. And they didn't get super hyped in this match. It felt like the Paige return has really already worn off. The pop that she got upon her return has really just faded quick. And the match wasn't great, but again, the crowd was really asleep for a lot of the night here. But the finish had, let's see here. Jax put Brie down, set her up for an annihilator. Paige kicked Jax off the ropes, and then Brie hooked Jax's legs and got the 3 count. All right. Let's continue We then had Jimmy and Jay. There's some backstage stuff, guys. I know. I'm just skipping to the final match here with Jimmy and Jay versus Solo and Talatanga. Jimmy and Jay fought to an apparent no contest, so 10.5 minutes of no decision. And it ended with Fatu looking strong. And he ends up, I opened the show with this, looking strong, and as he should. I'm critical of his character because it's very, very one-dimensional and he's got a lot of work to do. And it's silly that he's facing Roman Reigns for the championship already, but they are doing a nice job of making him look like a threat, that he's unstoppable. And that's the job. If you're going to do it, this is how you do it. Again, the execution and the choice of the person facing Roman is a little bit suspect in my mind. But this is the star building process. I think they're doing it too quickly, but it's the process. And I'm not going to fault the company for that. I just fault the decision to put a guy that you're trying to get over with the fans in the ring prematurely with one of the biggest stars of all time and asking the fans to somehow cheer for Fatu. It's not going to happen. It's just not. So, weird choice, kind of a quiet crowd for SmackDown. Backlash, I think, should kind of reignite things. It's been a weird follow-up since WrestleMania. We got a weird follow-up. And yes, I will comment quickly on the additional releases here. JC Mateo was released. He didn't last even a year. We had also the headline of the release today was The New Day. Specifically, Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. And they're out. They came to terms. They decided, nope, we're done. And I don't think that's a bad thing. If you've listened to this show for any length of time, you know I've been very critical of the New Day gimmick when they were baby faces, if you've been listening to me that long. And then when they had the heel turn, I thought it was very well done, very exciting to see where they could go. And they went, as we all know, absolutely nowhere with it, which was one of the biggest flubs in tag team history in terms of booking. But what else are they supposed to do? I mean, to say that this was a non-successful run or that WWE missed on them, or what the fuck are you talking about? They've been with the company almost 20 years. How many tag team championships did they win? How much TV time did they get? To say that this is somehow a failure or a misstep or a miscue or whatever you want to phrase it as for WWE, it's just not true. WWE employed them for nearly 20 years. I think they did a good job. I mean, I think they had a hell of a run, and they will be Hall of Famers as tag team, as a group. And yes, Big E will be included in on that. This is not a failure. This is business. So that's it. So the cuts continue. And we'll have more on that as the days go on, especially if there are more cuts by the company. So that'll do it for me, everybody. I appreciate you listening. I'll be back maybe in a day or so. Video, more audio, and as the news breaks, we'll certainly be trying to keep up on it here. So thank you, everybody, and consider going ad-free at patreon.com/WWE podcast. We'll talk next time.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.